Hello everyone, how are you all doing today? The world is going through some tough times right now, and I hope that things come back to normal soon. I read just yesterday that 21 different potential vaccines for the coronavirus are currently being tested. So let's hope for some light at the end of the tunnel. In Manage Engine, at the present time, we are all working from home and are trying to engage with our audience through webinars and workshops like this one. We hope we are able to create some value to you due to these activities. Today's webinar is on protecting against new cybersecurity threats with your SEM. Thank you very much for being a part of this webinar. Depending on where you're from, I'd like to wish you a very good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. So why this webinar? Why this particular topic on protecting against new cybersecurity threats? Well, actually, new cybersecurity threats such as fileless malware or living off the land attacks and insider threats have become very common. The sophisticated attackers of today don't need to download a malicious payload onto a victim's machine anymore. They can run the malware right off of memory and thus make it a fileless malware. Attackers have also started using built-in tools such as PowerShell to compromise Active Directory environments, and this is called living off the land. In addition to this, we're also seeing more and more incidents of insider threats taking place. Malicious insiders are hard to detect and can wreak a lot of havoc on organizations. To protect against these new types of attacks, it becomes imperative that organizations follow certain best practices and improve their security posture. Now, even if companies follow best practices, attackers are always figuring out new ways of attack and looking for loopholes. And these attacks that I alluded to just now, fileless malware, living off the land, insider threats, they are very hard to prevent. Therefore, apart from following security best practices, organizations also need an effective and comprehensive SIEM solution that will monitor each and every action in the network. Such a solution should also give timely reports and alerts to stop attackers. In this webinar, we'll go over how these attacks take place and how timely reports and alerts can stop attackers. Now, before I go ahead, I would like to make sure that you can see my screen and that you can also hear my voice. So if everything is okay and you can see the slides on your screen and you can also hear me loud and clear, could you just confirm this to me over chat, please? Just give me a good to go message over chat or just give me an indication that everything is fine. If I can get a few confirmations from people, that'll be really great. Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Sajish. I've also got a few more confirmations. Thank you so much. Thanks for confirming, guys. Thank you so much. During this webinar, in case the voice or picture quality gets bad at any time, please bring it to my attention using the chat, and I'll try to fix it right then and there. Unless you let me know, there's no way that I will know that the picture quality or the voice is bad. So please do let me know if in case there are technical difficulties. Please also keep sending me your questions using the questions feature on your webinar panel. At the very end, I'll have some time set aside for Q&A. In case for whatever reason, I'm unable to answer your question today, I'll certainly get back to you within 24 hours over email. By the way, this webinar is being recorded and you'll receive the recording over email soon. Well, so now I've spoken for 3 minutes already and I'm yet to introduce myself. So my name is Ram Vaidyanathan and I'm a cybersecurity specialist at Manage Engine. I've been with Manage Engine for the last 6 years now. In my role, I get to research about the latest techniques attackers are using against organizations. And I also get to learn from people like you about the new ways in which organizations can stop attackers. People like you also give me a lot of insight about how things are developing in the cybersecurity market. And Manage Engine as a company uses this feedback to develop our security solutions. So if you'd like to get in touch with me about anything cybersecurity related, or even if you just want to say a hello, my email address is right there on your screen. It's ram.v@manageengine.com. I'd love to hear from you. So with all of that said and all of the logistics out of the way, it's time to start this webinar. Let's get rolling with the agenda and see what we have in store for today. So here's the agenda. The very first thing we'll discuss today is lateral movement and privilege escalation in Active Directory. How does an attacker gain initial access, and how do they finally compromise domain admin credentials? We'll then go over the anatomy of a fileless attack. What is it exactly, and how does it take place? Then we'll also step into a new world of living off the land attacks. We'll see how fileless and living off the land attacks are related. We'll then briefly talk about insider threats as an attack vector. Once we do this, we'll then go over an attack performed live. That's right, we'll do a live LLMNR attack, crack a credential, log onto a machine, and leverage PowerShell for some reconnaissance activity. So I think this part of the webinar here, where we do an actual attack live and also use PowerShell to enumerate a domain, that is probably going to be very, very interesting. And finally, we'll see how an effective SIEM solution can help mitigate these risks and keep your organization safe. So for this part of the webinar, I'll be using Manage Engine Log 360, but you're free to use any effective SIEM solution. So first things first, how does an attacker move laterally in Active Directory? How do they escalate their privileges and finally gain domain admin rights? What exactly do they do? Just take a look at this slide right here. For this part of the webinar, I refer to the YouTube video, 6 Degrees of Domain Admin by Andy Robbins, Rohan Wazirkar, and Will Schroeder. So if ever you get the time, please go ahead and watch this video. I think it's pretty neat and it gives you a lot of information. I found it really interesting. So anyway, we'll go over this scenario together now. Imagine for a moment that all of these dark gray squares that you see on your screen right now, they represent systems in your network environment. Suppose that an attacker has set their eyes on this particular organization over here. They have decided to take it down and compromise this organization's data. So they start targeting a sales executive working for this organization using social engineering techniques. They stalk this particular employee's LinkedIn profile, Twitter profile, Facebook profile, all their social media profiles and whatnot. They get to learn some details about the employee, and using all of this information, they then send this employee a very convincing and compelling phishing email with a malicious attachment. So this particular sales executive, they think that the email is legitimate, and what do? They click on it, and that's all that the bad guy needs. That's all they need to get an initial foothold into the network. So this compromise is shown by the red system over here. So at this point of time, at the very beginning, it would be an initial or low level privilege. At this time, the attacker can use certain tools that are built in, such as, built in into the Windows environment, such as PowerShell, to get information about the entire network. They can figure out exactly where the domain administrator is logged on. Now, the attacker may then get credentials to the system that this particular system, this one in red, has access to. And these systems can be represented in yellow. As you can see on your screen, there are a few yellow squares. Now the attacker has the choice to pivot to any of these 3 systems depicted in yellow. So let's suppose that they decide to pivot to this system over here, this system at the top left. And once they do that, they have to make a choice once again. They can pivot to this system here, this one here, this one here, or this one here. So these are the systems that this system has access to. So let's assume that they pivot off to this system over here. And as soon as they do this, they'll start looking for other systems that this machine has access to. For the purposes of this example, let's suppose that there's no new systems that the person can access from this machine. So what do they do now? They basically hit a roadblock. So what they do is they backtrack. They backtrack back to this system and then look for a new machine. So let's assume that they do that. They backtrack and then start looking for a new machine. And at this point of time, they decide to pivot off to this machine over here. And once they get to this machine, they have access to a few more machines, including the system in which the domain administrator is logged on. And once that happens, once they get access to this machine, what do you think is going to happen? Well, they basically own the domain, right? They get access to all the machines in the network and have the master keys to the crown jewels of the organization. So this is how an attacker basically moves laterally in Active Directory. And as you can see, it all started with that phishing email with a malicious attachment. So the employee clicks on it, and from there, the attacker moves laterally. Now, when we talk about traditional malware, a user typically visits a website or gets a phishing email with an attachment, like we just saw now. They click on it, and without their knowledge, a malicious file gets downloaded into their hard disk. It then executes, and the rest is history. But with fileless malware, what happens is that no malicious software or file is installed in the victim's machine. So it runs off of the RAM directly from memory. So let me repeat that again. With a fileless malware, what happens is it runs off the RAM or directly from memory. So it never gets into the victim's hard disk. So that's what the difference is. And for this reason, it's very hard to detect. Your normal antivirus solutions may not be able to stop these kinds of malware as there are no known signatures. Take a look at this diagram right here. This is the anatomy of a fileless malware attack. And as you can see, it could all start with an attacker sending a malicious phishing email with a link to a website or a malicious attachment. The email subject line could be something like, "Are you available right now?" Apparently, that's a subject line that everyone clicks on. "Are you available right now?" Or it could be a subject line like "invoice due" or "payroll." Subject lines that have to do with money always gets the clicks. Or it could be something like "coronavirus safety measures." Everyone is interested about something like that. So the user will immediately click on the link, and the link would then take them onto a malicious website. And the malicious website could then load Flash. And once Flash is loaded, a script could run which leverages the Windows PowerShell tool. As you know, Windows PowerShell is a trusted tool used by administrators, and it is not going to set off any alarms because it's whitelisted, right? So anyway, the PowerShell then downloads and executes a script from a command and control server and starts sending the user's information to the attacker. We can also see how the attacker lives off the land here while executing a fileless malware attack. He or she only needs to use tools that are trusted in the victim's environment, such as PowerShell, to carry out this attack. PowerShell is a highly flexible tool, and it is also very powerful. But it can be used for all the wrong reasons, and nobody would know unless the right detection techniques are used. Most antivirus solutions are not going to detect it. Apart from PowerShell, other legitimate tools that attackers use to wage their wars include VB scripts, WMI, CMD, and PSXEC. Well, so far, we have spoken about these attacks, keeping in mind an external hacker. When the attacker is external to the company, they first have to get access into the company network. They have to perform their initial reconnaissance, identify a victim, research about that particular employee, find out about their roles and responsibilities, and then probably send them a phishing email. But when the malicious attacker is internal to the company, so it's a malicious insider, the process is much simpler. This malicious insider, they already know quite a few things about the network as they are already within it. The last few years have seen a lot of insider attacks taking place. In fact, I read recently that almost 50% of all attacks are insider attacks. Malicious insiders can try to steal intellectual property, perform IT sabotage, or undertake some type of identity fraud. In order to move laterally, again, rogue insiders can leverage tools such as PowerShell. So that's a general background and the theory. Are you all ready for some hands-on stuff now? Why don't we do one thing? Let's spend a few minutes talking about an actual attack and then see how that attack is performed in a network environment. The attack that we'll talk about is LLMNR, or Link Local Multicast Name Resolution Attack. This is one of the most basic things that any pen tester can do on a network to check how vulnerable it is. LLMNR allows machines on the same subnet to identify hosts when DNS fails. In case a machine on the network wants to communicate with another machine on the network but the DNS lookup fails, LLMNR will then take over. The machine will then try to find out where the other machine is by sending a broadcast message to all the systems in the network. Just take a look at this diagram here. This explains it beautifully. The host over here wants to reach a particular file share called classified. So on purpose, I've omitted the I over here. It's classified. So they have basically made a typo. And because of this typo, the server is not going to know how to reach this particular file share. And it's going to respond back saying it has no idea what the host is talking about. It's unable to locate the share. Then the host, because the name is not getting resolved, will use LLMNR and send a broadcast message to all the systems in the network. So that is point number 3. And by the way, this message is also going to reach the attacker who is silently listening in on the network. At this time, the hacker responds saying that it knows how to connect. So why don't you, that is, why don't you, the host, send me your hash and I'll happily connect you. The host, who now becomes a victim, happily sends the hash to the hacker. The hacker now gets the hash and the foothold into the network. So that's how this attack basically works. Now let's get together and see how all of this happens. How does this take place in an actual environment? So let's go into our lab environment now. So I've got here a few virtual machines. One is a Windows 10 machine, and this is going to be our host. Then I've got a domain controller where our shares are going to be configured. And I've also got the hacker's machine running Kali Linux. So I've got that as well. That's our attacker machine. So what we can do is in our Kali Linux machine. So let's go into our Kali Linux machine here. Let me quickly log in. And let me open up a terminal. So in our Kali Linux machine, we are first going to use a tool called Responder, which will help us quickly gain credentials. Now, Responder is a very easy to use tool, and it's also very effective against vulnerable networks. It comes built in Kali Linux. So Responder listens to all the traffic on the network, and in case a hash is obtained, you'll get to see it. So I've opened the terminal here, and let's locate Responder. Locate responder.py, and let me go into this particular path. All right, that's done. And now let's fire up Responder. And the code for doing that is Python responder.py. Let me just close that. .py -i ETH0 -rdwv. So we've just fired up Responder. So what's important here is not the code, but you get to see how this actually runs. So you can see here that Responder has started listening for events. And take a look at all of this up top over here. It's listening to all of the different events over here. And it's also going to be doing the LLMNR poisoning. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you'll be getting a hash. So let's now go into the host machine. Let me quickly power this on. So just bear with me here as I'm powering this machine up. It's probably going to take a few seconds. So I had it all powered on before the webinar. For some reason, it just shut down on me. So as you can see, the username here is Jim Riley. So let me just quickly log on to this. So remember, this is going to be our host/victim machine. And typically what happens is, like I told you earlier, we are going to try and connect to a SMB share from the host machine, and responder is going to be listening in on this, and then we are going to try and get a hash that way. But to make matters a little simpler, what we'll do is we'll go here and we'll directly try and point to the attacker's machine and see what happens. And we'll see. I mean, the concept is all the same. We'll see if we can get a hash that way. So I know the attacker machine's IP address, and I'm going to directly point to that. And yeah, this is expected. So it's going to ask for our credentials. So let's just cancel out of that. And hopefully we should have something in responder right now. And there we go. Do you see this? Take a look at this. Jay Riley, that's the user, that's the host or the victim. And we are successful in getting a hash. So here's the hash of this particular user. So let's do one thing. Let's go ahead and copy this particular hash. And now I'm going to open an editor within Kali Linux and save this hash. So I'll say gedit hash, we'll just give a random name, hash300.txt, and open up an editor. We'll save the hash, save it, we can close it. And now we are going to perform a dictionary attack. And for that, we are going to use rawq.txt, which is a set of compromised passwords. We'll run our hash through this particular file called rawq.txt, and we'll be using a tool called Hashcat for doing this. Again, Hashcat comes built in Kali Linux. And the code for running Hashcat is just this, hashcat-m 5600, because we are trying to get an LTNM v2 hash, and hash 300.txt. And then this is where rawq.txt is stored for me. By the way, there's a lot of dictionaries available for you with a compromised password. So rawq is just one of these I'm using as an example. So here's the code for running Hashcat. And just like that, within a few seconds, take a look at this. Take a look at all of this. And let me highlight this for you. Take a look at this. Well, Jim Riley had set a very complicated password, right? Password at 123. So this tells you why it's extremely important that you have the right password policy in your domain. And definitely don't use passwords like this, which are so easy to crack. I mean, Jim Riley has set a very, very difficult password at password 123. That's why we were easily able to crack it, right? Great. So anyways, we've got this. We are able to compromise this particular machine. So let's go back into this machine now. And we'll see how we can perform domain enumeration with PowerShell now. Numerous PowerShell exploit tools are available for download online. Let me just run a few commandlets on PowerShell and show you just how much a normal user can learn about the domain using PowerShell. So let's power up PowerShell right now. So right now, what I'll be doing is I'll be using a tool called PowerView. This is used to gain information on a Windows domain. And it is very much a PowerShell tool. I'm going to show you a few things that you can do to enumerate a domain now. So please follow along. So I've got PowerView stored in my downloads folder. So I'll be CDing into my downloads folder, CD downloads. And I'm going to write up this code here, PowerShell dash execution policy, or EP bypass. So as the name suggests, this is used to bypass certain security controls. So just writing this code, it's as easy to, to bypass your security controls. And then we are going to load up PowerView. And that is loaded up as well. Now let's do a few commands together. The first command that we'll be looking at is get net domain. Just take a look at this. This is going to give us details about the forest or the actual domain name. Just take a look at this. So we've got the domain name, it's comfort.local. And our domain controller is quinta-dc.comfort.local. Get net domain controller. And look at all the information you have here. This is going to give us details about the current domain controller. We can clearly see what operating system and version it is running. You can see here that it's running Windows Server 2019 standard evaluation version. And guess what? You can also see the IP address 192.168.216.143. So this is golden information for an attacker. Get domain policy is another command that we can look at. Just take a look at this. And as you can see here, we've got policies for Kerberos, system access, registry values, and so on. So this gives you the list of all the domain policies. Let's do one thing here. Let's pick on one of these policies and enumerate even further. For example, we can know more about the system access policy. That's always good information for an attacker. So what we do is get -domain policy system access. This tells us the minimum password age is 1 day and the maximum password age is 42 days. And take a look at this lockout bat count, it's set to 0. In fact, what it means is it's not even set. So that's very good news for an attacker, right? You're not going to be getting logged out anytime soon. And you also get to see the minimum password length here. It's set at 7 characters. So if an attacker wants to do a password spray or brute force, this is again going to be very good information that they can make use of. Get user property -properties password last set. And take a look at this here. This is very powerful information for any pen tester. This tells us exactly when each user in the domain last set their password. It gives us both the date and the time it was last done. Take a look at all of this information. Get net computer. Just like we easily got a list of all the users on the domain, we can just as easily get a list of all the computers on the domain with this command. In our simple lab domain, we have these 3 computers. Let's take a look at one more command here. Get net group member, group name, domain admins. This command will give us the list of all the user accounts that are part of the group domain admins. Again, very valuable information if someone is trying to enumerate a domain. And I think you'll like this command here. I really think that this is going to give us really powerful information. Invoke share finder. This command will give us all the shares on all the hosts in the current domain. And as you can see, we have a few shares over here called classified, design one, secrets. So these are all shares that could hold a lot of sensitive information. And a person who is trying to enumerate a domain can clearly see this by running such commands. Get net GPO. This can be used to get all the GPOs in the domain. And again, very, very powerful information for an attacker. Take a look at all of the GPOs in the domain here. So the point I'm trying to make is these commands that we have seen just now, they're used for enumerating the domain and gaining information about it. So we have seen here, what we have actually seen here is reconnaissance using built-in tools. Privilege escalation can also be done using PowerShell. And again, there are easily available scripts that you can use to perform a password spray attack right from this console. Apart from enumerating a domain in this way through PowerShell, pen testers can also use tools such as Bloodhound to make lives very easy for themselves. And I've got just the tool for you over here in my Kali Linux machine. I've got Bloodhound. So let me just open that and show you exactly what it is. So as you can see here, it maps the entire domain for you, and it gives you information about the number of users in the domain, the number of computers, the number of groups, the ACLs, the relationships, everything. And if you go into queries, and for example, let's take a look at shortest path to high value targets. This is something that we could be interested in, and you choose the domain. It's going to give you the paths that you can use to reach domain admin credentials. Again, you can make use of such tools to get to know a domain and to take it down. As a pen tester, this could be extremely valuable tool for you. Great. So we have looked at all of this from one side of the puzzle here. We have looked at everything from the attacker's perspective so far. Now let's spend some time talking about the defense techniques you can adopt with a SIEM solution to stop these kinds of attacks from taking place. So let me quickly close this and go into our AD Audit Plus. So the very first thing that you need to do is you need to be able to monitor all of your PowerShell commandlets. You can do this with an effective SIEM solution like Log360. And here's AD Audit Plus, which is a module within Log360. And if you head over to Server Audit, on the left-hand side, you have PowerShell auditing. And here you've got script block logging, module logging, and process tracking. So let's go into script block logging here. Let's give it some time. Let me try and get some data for you. There we go. So in a report like this, you'll be able to see all the PowerShell commandlets that were run by all the users in your domain for a period of your choice. So right here, we've got the last 24 hours. So you'll be able to see all the PowerShell commandlets that are run in your domain over here in this report. So you'll be able to see things like who ran the report, or sorry, who ran the script rather, when did they run it, what was the domain on which it was run, and so much more. Not just that, you can also go into details under script data. So you have details here, and you can actually get the scripts that were run. This actually captures the complete activity and the full content of the script here. Likewise, if you go into module logging, you'll be able to see how PowerShell commands were executed. So let's just scroll down and take a look at this report here. Each command may have multiple module logs. Again, you can search all the script data. So let me show you how you can search. You can actually search by username. You can search by command name, command type, whether it's a commandlet or it's a script. You can search by the source. You can also search by the command invocation or the script data. So you can actually use this feature to search for specific users or commands here. Now these reports on script block logging and module logging, they are very powerful and they are very good. But if you want to go one step further, you can always configure alerts about specific PowerShell queries. To do that, you can go into the alerts tab on top, new alert profile, and you can configure an alert through this page here. For example, you can set up an alert if a particular PowerShell commandlet is run by specific users in your domain. Or you can configure an alert in case a user is running multiple PowerShell commandlets in a short period of time, because that could be an activity that is very, very suspicious. It could be an indicator of a compromise. It could even be a fileless malware attack. So these alerts you can configure through this page right here. The other thing that I would like to talk about today when it comes to protecting your network is detecting anomalies. And this is going to be very useful for you when you want to protect against fileless attacks and also insider threats. So I've got another instance of AD Audit Plus open here, where we'll see how you can detect these anomalies. Just go into analytics and you've got anomalies right here. So this is where UBA or user behavior analytics comes into play. UBA uses machine learning algorithms to set a baseline for every user in the network environment. To do this, the system learns by itself and establishes something called a normal profile for every user in the network. So a baseline of expected activity is calculated for each and every user. In case the user's actions deviate from the normal range of expected behavior, that's considered an anomaly. The use of UBA protects our Active Directory from new types of attacks. So basically, with this module, what we're looking for is we're looking for 3 different types of anomalies. The first type of anomaly is what's called a count anomaly. For example, is there a user who's had an unusually high number of file activity for their user profile? The second anomaly is based on time. So here you're asking questions like, are there users with unusual logon activity times? The third anomaly is the new resource access anomaly. Here we look for users who access any resources for the very first time. So as you probably guessed by now, user behavior analytics does not require an Active Directory administrator or a security administrator to configure any rules or conditions to look for security breaches. The system learns by itself, and it becomes extremely useful against insider threats and fileless malware, as we'll see just now. UBA increases your company's security posture against sophisticated attacks that don't follow any known pattern or known signatures. So here on this page in this report, you get to see for a period of your choosing. So here we are running it for the last 1 year. For a period of your choosing, all the behavior that's deemed to be unexpected from users. The activity count here shows the number of anomalous activities. So we've got 314 anomalies based on the number of unusual logon times based on users. And clicking on this right there gives you a drill down of what really happened. Just take a look at this report. Here you get to see that this particular user, so let's just pick on this user here. You get to see that this particular user, their general start time is 7 a.m. and their general end time is 1 a.m. Just take a look at this here. But see this, this user is showing unusual activity time. They were active between 4 and 5 a.m. and AD Audit Plus is tracking this for us. This message over here makes it very clear as to what happened. Logon activity was done by Harry within 4 to 5 a.m., which deviates from users' normal logon activity hours, which is 7 a.m. to 1 a.m. Anomaly category, unusual activity logon time. So in case a user is doing things that are very, very anomalous for their profile, you'll be able to track it right here. Also, in case there is an attacker on your network and they have compromised a user's account, it's probably easy for them to compromise a user's account, but it might be very difficult for them to mimic that user's behavior. So in case they do or they exhibit behavior which is very, very anomalous, again, you'll be able to track it using this particular user behavior analytics module of AD Audit Plus. Let me take you over one more report in the UBA module. So let me go back into this instance of AD Audit Plus where I've got this. And you've got this anomalous process activity, new process on server. Let me try and get some data for you. So what this report will show you is all the new processes that are running on machines in your network for the very first time. Just take a look at all of these processes here. For example, take a look at this process. So what this tells you is that this process was run on this machine for the very first time on this date at this time. So it gives you the message right here. It breaks it up for you. Probably this is a fileless malware, So why is this very, very unusual process running on this server for the very first time. That's something that you might, as a security administrator, be very concerned about. The other thing that you can look at is, you can look at this graph here, and it tells you all the machines which are running unusual processes for the very first time. And you can just drill down. And for example, this particular machine here, dev-ms4, it's run 68 different processes for the very first time. And clicking on this gives you a drill down on all the unusual processes that are running on that particular machine. And you get to see that a lot of unusual processes are running on that machine in a very, very short period of time. So you can be aware of what's going on. Are there processes that are running for the very first time? And you can immediately take action. So with a solution like AD Audit Plus, you can track for any unusual processes. We also spoke about fileless malware and ransomware, right? So what you can do with a solution like AD Audit Plus is you can go into file audit, and you can go into file audit reports. So what is ransomware going to do? Apart from running unusual processes, it's also going to do a lot of file-based activities. It's probably going to do a lot of file modifications, file deletions. You can run it for the period of your choice. It's going to do a lot of file modifications, file deletions, file renames. It's probably going to append a file extension to the end of your already existing extension. So it's going to do a lot of these malicious activity on your file servers, on your files and folders. So you can be alerted about all of that using reports from AD Audit Plus. So with a solution like this, you'll be able to safeguard yourself all that much more better. So that's pretty much it. These were the things that I wanted to cover in this webinar today. So let me quickly go back into the presentation. So before I let you go for the day, I have a few questions that I would like to ask you right now. So if you can take a moment to answer these questions for me, that'll be really, really great. These questions will be launched as polls on your screen right now. Let me go ahead and quickly launch this poll. So the first question is, how do you know Manage Engine Log 360? And do you want our product specialist to assist you with a free evaluation of the solution? So let me launch this poll right now. You'll be seeing that on your screen. So in a webinar like this, in 45 minutes, there is only so much of the solution that I can cover. But obviously, if you want us to go over more, we'd be very, very happy to take you over the product, take you over the solution, and see exactly, and show you exactly how it works in your environment. So if you'd like us to show this for you, please let us know, and we'll be able to serve you better. So we'll just take a few seconds for this. I'm seeing a lot of responses coming through. We'll probably take another 15 seconds. All right, thank you so much for those responses. Thank you so much. I've got one more question that I've got to ask you. So let me go ahead and quickly do that. I'll be launching that question on your screen right now. Now, this survey is about the session feedback. So if you can let me know about how this session went for you, if you can give me some feedback, that'll be really, really great. Thank you so much for those responses. I'm seeing a lot of responses coming through. Thank you so much. All right, great. I'll let that survey run. In the meantime, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature in your webinar panel and send me your questions. I've already received a few questions and I'll be answering them over chat. And please keep your questions coming. I'll still be online for the next 10 minutes answering your questions. If you have any further questions once this webinar gets over, that's absolutely fine. You've got my email address on your screen. It's ram.v@manageengine.com. You have been a lovely audience. It's been great presenting to you today. And it was, I thoroughly enjoyed this process, of preparing for this webinar as well. So it's been great. And I look forward to meeting you the next time around. Thank you so much.